Okay, so we are talking about the CDRs, the call detail records. And what a call detail record is a record of all the communication that your phone does. Most carriers capture text messages, all carriers capture phone calls, and now some carriers are starting to capture your data or data transactions with towers. And they're all reported onto something called the HLR or the home location registry, and we've talked about that. Now, what we have here is the CDR. The CDR, or the call detail record, provides us a capture, and it's normally put into a column or a spreadsheet form. And at the very top here, we have something called our header. And our header provides us the date, time, duration, direction of the call, the dialed number, and destination number. And you'll notice that I have these blacked out, and that's because this is an actual subpoena that was gathered, and I don't want to have people calling the phone numbers on here. Status, special features, caller ID, switch, sector, LAC, tower, originating or latitude, originating longitude, and then our CPDSP. Okay. Now, out of all of this stuff here and all of these presentations are going to be the type of call. So we have our outgoing type of call. So we have an outgoing call, and it was made at 5:17, 17:04 in the afternoon. As an outgoing call, it was answered, and it was sent over this tower and on this longitude, or this longitude and latitude. So tower 27079 that sits at original latitude of 36,964,530 and negative 121.998.188. These are the coordinates for our tower. So now I have a phone call that was made at a specific time to a specific person. So now I have a detail record, or I have some type of communication between someone and someone else. So if I'm looking at a specific set of calls, let's say I'm looking at a specific set of people, I can subpoena those two numbers specifically, or I can get all of the numbers that are relate to this entire case. Now, if you'll notice as we go down here, I have about 3,000 phone calls in this data array here. So, when we start scrolling down here, you're going to see we got a ton of phone calls. So I'm going to scroll down here real quick just to give you an idea of the significant level of numbers we have here. So my total number, well, it's a little short, 2,031 active records. Now you might say to yourself, well, 2,031 active records, that's not too bad. That's quite a few phone calls. And I would like to know what this would look like if we could place this out onto a map. Now, since I have longitude and latitude coordinates here, it should be a pretty easy thing for me to be able to put this onto a Google Earth or some tool that allows me to do that. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the way that we've been doing it for years and years and years. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an easier way. Now, first of all, notice that I have this in a CSV format. This is an Excel comma separated value format. And we always want to get our records in CSV, because if we don't get them in CSV, then we're not going to get them in a spreadsheet form. And a spreadsheet form is very important. We do not want PDF. Don't get text files. Don't get any other form, database files, things like that, because they're very hard to work with. The CSV file, comma, separated value file .csv is the easiest of the ways to manipulate this data. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to look across here. I'm going to say, okay, well, I have these two numbers here. I have 36,964,530, and I have this negative 121. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy both of these out, and also I'm going to get a label here. So I'm going to copy these values out. So I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to copy these values. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop up my notepad, which I'm doing off screen here, sorry. All right, so here's my notepad, and I'm just going to pop these into my notepad, Control V, and I'm going to shorten this up for you so you can see it. So now I have my my original longitude, or excuse me, my original latitude, my original longitude, and I have my tower number. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to Google Earth, which I've already opened, so it would open up very quickly. And I'm going to add a place mark. And this new place mark is going to be my new tower. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my notepad. And I'm going to copy off my first coordinate. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy out my second coordinate. Okay, and I'm going to call this my tower number. Things are going very efficiently for me right now because things are going in relatively quickly for this first mark that I'm doing. And I'll put all that in there. And I could add the image, things like that, but I don't want to do that just yet. I'm going to click OK. All right, and that puts my mark out on the world. I'm going to double click on that mark and try to bring it up. And it doesn't seem to want to run over there for me. So what I'll do is I'll just span the world back out here. And we'll spin the world around because I kind of know where it's at. And I think I see my mark there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll in. And sure enough, there it is right there. There is my mark 2709. And it looks like it's right there in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so what I've done now is I put on my very first marker. Okay. Now what I can do now is I can add in all of my other markers, and when I'm done with putting on all my other markers, I'll have an array or a map of all of the different phone calls that were made using the CDR, which is a great thing. So now I can see maybe what time phone calls were made. I can see where the individual lives. I can see all this kind of stuff. Now you're probably saying to yourself, wow, that is a lot of work. I've got another 2,000 plus entries that I'm going to have to do. And this is a kind of a crazy thing now that I'm going to have to go in here and do. So isn't there an easier way of doing this? And I knew you were going to answer that question or ask that question. So yes, there is. And here's the answer. So the answer is another program. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. And we're not going to save this. We don't need this anymore. And we're going to look at our map sheet here. And we're going to say, okay, we're going to import all of this at one time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a program called Maplink. And Maplink is a small call detail record mapping program. It's a subversion of a larger program called Dart, which we will briefly talk about a little bit later on. But what this tool does is this tool allows me to take all of my records and do the same thing that I did before, but it allows me to import everything at one time. So let's see how quick and easy it might be to do 2,000 records. Now remember, we just did one record, and that took us, according to our clock on our timer, it took us about 8 minutes to go through the entire process, and that was me talking. But it still took 3-4 minutes for me to plot that single point. Okay, so you times that 3-4 minutes times 2,000. We're probably talking about a week's worth of work of you plotting in that single CDR. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exact same thing. But this time, again, I'm going to use this program called Maplink. So I'm going to open up the Maplink control panel. I'm simply going to go up. I want to add a layer. So I'm going to use my layer here. I'm going to click on Add Layer. I'm going to choose Points and Paths because I want to show not only the call detail records, I also want to show the linking between the call detail records. I want to know how many times a certain place was used because I can do something called a heat map, which I'll show you at the end when I'm done. I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to call this, we'll call this Training 1. And I'm going to leave all the icons and everything for this one. I'll leave that all the same. I'm going to click Import. Now I have 4 choices here, and I'm going to use the most convenient choice, which is the Freeform Importer, and this is one that most people use. I'm going to select OK. Now, since I only have one file, I don't have 2 reference files in this exercise. I only have one file. I'm going to use the single file import. If I had 2 files, if I had the CDR file and the tower file, 2 separate files, if that's how they provided me the CSV files, then what I would do is I would do 2 instead of 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select 1. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the file. So I'm going to go out here, I'm going to grab my file, and this is the same file I have opened up. And I'm going to choose first row has headers. Now remember, I told you in the CDR that very first line had all the information about the columns. That told us what everything was. That's the header file, and I want to make sure I grab that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that. I'm going to click on the check mark here, which will apply that first row has header. And now what I want to do is I want to go down and I want to choose my latitude. Here's my original latitude. I'm going to select OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to original longitude, and here it is, and that's going to select that. I'm going to say OK. I'm not worried about bearing on this one because I'm not doing any type of azimuth check. I'm just looking at plain and simple lat and long. And now what I want to do is I want to do my date and time. I have a 2-column date and time, so I chose 2 columns. So I'm going to choose date for this one, select a time or set, and now I'm going to select time for this one. I'm going to select that one. So now I have date and time, and I also want to know what tower number it is. So what I'm going to choose is the tower number from my list. There's my selection for that. And if I had some additional files in there that I wanted to add, so if I wanted to add maybe the section that the cell tower belonged to, or some other data, I could do that. I'm going to select preview data. Okay, so here are my 2,000 records. And basically what we're looking at is just a spreadsheet again. So I have my 2,000 records here, and I can scroll down. I can see all 2,000 records here. And if I scroll to the right, I will see that I have all of my tower labels in there. And if I had chosen a heading or an angle or some other additional information, that information would have showed up. But I didn't choose to do that on this one. Okay, now I'm going to choose Apply Mapping. Okay, now here's the unique thing. What's happened now is it's gone through and it's found all of the matches. So as I go through here, these are all of the towers that have multiple phone calls. So these are all single base towers. These are all towers that had a single transaction, maybe a phone call, maybe some type of hit was done on it. But these ones here, these are all multiple towers. That means that there was multiple instances done off of each one of these towers. So once I scroll down here, you'll see that there's quite a few with quite a lot of data. This could be very interesting for me, especially when I'm trying to find somebody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select finished, and boom, you look on the map, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I can already see some information here, but I can't really see it because it's all grayed out. And this is one thing that a lot of people find confusing. All you have to do to show the data is just close the menu bar, because while the menu bar is open, we're in control mode and you can't do anything. So once that goes away, voila, here are all of our points. Now, I don't have a scroll mouse on this laptop. I'm using just a thumb pad. So what I want to do is I want to use my zoom button, which is over in the right-hand side here, and I'm going to zoom in on my data, and I'm going to get down kind of into the nitty-gritty here, and I'm going to start showing all my points. Now, think about this. You took 3 to 4 minutes for you to plot just a single point in Google Earth using the manual method. And in this method, what I've done is I've plotted 2,000 points in less than 3 minutes. And I'm not only able to show you 3,000 points, I'm also able to stack points. So when you're done looking at this data, you can tell past and you can see where this individual, or basically the pattern of life, as we like to call it, of this individual. You can see that this individual, where his normal track is, or where he normally moves around in his area. So if we wanted to say, well, there was a incident that happened over in Oakland, and then this date and time for this individual. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna click View Details, and here's my records. And let's say at 9:46 in the morning, something happened over there. I can say, yeah, this device that belongs by account to this person was certainly in this area because there's a call record being associated here. Now, I told you I'd show you a heat map, and I'm going to do this very quickly. What I can do now is I can click on this little marker here, and I can say generate a heat map. And when the heat map is generated, sure enough, this is going to give me a very clear idea of where my suspect normally hangs out. Notice that the 2 spots where he is most active are right here. We have our 779 points, we have 572 points. Now what does that mean? Well, this could mean that this is where he goes to school, since this is Oak Street School right here, and this might be his house where he lives, so his phone sits on his charger all night long and it pings off the towers. So these transactions right here may represent where this individual's phone's sitting for a long period of time. But again, we were able to do this, and we were now able to go in and do some greater analytics by using this tool. And again, we have only used about 5 or 6 minutes so far to process 2,000 points. And again, you took 3 minutes to process a single point and still had 2,000 plus points to go by doing it through the manual method. We plotted 2,000 points, and now you're doing your analytics. Now you're getting on with your work, and that's really the power here. This is what we want to make sure you understand, is that this is a tool that takes the worry and the work away from plotting and doing that redundant computer data, and puts you back into the driver's seat and lets you get on with your investigation. And that's the power of the Maplink application.